Welcome back to the Explainer. You know, we all talk about being stressed out, but what does that actually mean? Today, we're going to get into it. We're going to explore what stress is really doing to our health, and more importantly, how we can learn to adapt. I mean, who hasn't, right? That feeling of being completely swamped, your heart is racing, your mind is just a blur, it's a universal feeling. But let's look a little closer. Because something is happening. We're going to move past just the feeling and get right into the science of it, the biological and psychological gears that are turning. Because if you can understand the system, you can learn to work with it, not just feel like you're constantly fighting it. So here's our plan. We'll start with the body's two main alarm systems. Then we'll walk through the three stages of a major stress response. After that, we'll look at what happens when that stress becomes chronic. And finally, we'll get into the good stuff, the practical tools for managing it all and building our well-being.
First up, the body's alarm system. And it's not just one big red button. It's actually a pretty sophisticated setup with two different ways of responding, depending on what kind of threat it's dealing with.
So check this out. On one hand, you have what's called the local adaptation syndrome, or LAS. Think of this as the local fire department. You touch a hot pan, it handles the problem right there, at your hand. It's specific, it's contained. But on the other hand, you've got the general adaptation syndrome, or GAS. This is not the local fire department. This is the National Guard being called in. It's a full body, system-wide, all hands on deck, red alert. So let's talk more about that general alarm. This massive whole-body response doesn't just happen instantly. It actually unfolds in three predictable stages. It's a journey. And here's that journey laid out. It starts with the alarm. That's the initial jolt, the shock, the classic fight-or-flight response kicking in. If the stressor hangs around, your body moves into the resistance stage. Here, it's working overtime, pouring tons of energy into coping and trying to get back to normal. But if the stress just doesn't quit, your body hits the final stage, exhaustion. This is when the tank is empty. Your resources are depleted, and you're vulnerable to getting sick or hitting total burnout. And that brings us to a really critical point. What happens when you get stuck in that exhaustion stage? When your body's attempt to adapt just fails, and that general alarm is ringing 24/7? Well, the long-term cost is incredibly high. Just look at the physical toll here. It's staggering. We're talking about a cascade of potential problems hitting nearly every system in your body. It can contribute to heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, gut problems. The list goes on. This is a powerful reminder that chronic stress is not just in your head. And of course, the impact isn't just physical. The psychological consequences are just as severe. We're talking chronic anxiety, depression, anger, and that word we hear so much about, burnout. In really extreme cases, it can even lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. It's also helpful to separate these two ideas. A crisis is an acute moment. It's a turning point where your old ways of coping just aren't cutting it anymore. Burnout is different. It's not a single moment, it's a long, slow grind. It's that state of deep, draining exhaustion, emotional, physical, and mental, from being under pressure for way too long. Okay, so we get the problem. That's the heavy stuff. But now, let's shift gears and talk about solutions. How do we actually cope with all this pressure? The good news is we've got a toolkit. The crucial thing to remember is that we're not helpless. We basically have three core strategies. First, you can try to alter the stressor. Can you actually change the situation? If not, okay, plan B, adapt to the stressor. This is about changing your thoughts, your reactions, your mindset. And finally, an option we sometimes forget, you can avoid the stressor. Sometimes the healthiest thing to do is just to remove yourself from the situation. But coping isn't just about putting out fires as they pop up. The real long-term game is about building a strong foundation of psychosocial health. It's about being proactive, and it all starts with the way we see ourselves, our self-concept. So, self-concept. This is the very core of your psychological identity. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are, and understanding its different parts is the first step toward building the kind of resilience that can handle whatever life decides to throw at you. The first piece is body image. Now, this isn't just about what you see in the mirror. It's your internal feeling about your physical self. And a negative body image can be a huge, silent source of chronic stress. Next up is role performance. We all wear different hats, right? We're an employee, a parent, a friend, a student. A ton of stress comes from feeling like we're failing in one of those roles, or when the expectations just feel overwhelming. Then there's personal identity. This is your deep internal sense of who you are as an individual. And one of the trickiest things stress can do is make us feel like we've lost touch with that core self, which makes it even harder to navigate everything else. And finally, all of this ties into self-esteem. This is basically how much you like yourself. A simple way to think of it is the gap between your ideal self, the person you wish you were, and your actual self, the person you see yourself as right now. The stronger your self-esteem, the more powerful your buffer against stress. So, as we wrap this up, here's the thought to leave with. Stress is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's just part of life. The real question isn't if you'll face it, but how. By understanding these systems, how your body sounds the alarm, how it tries to adapt, and how your own self-concept works, you can move from just reacting to stress to intentionally building a healthier, more resilient you.